I want to talk today about what's on everyone's mind very quickly, about this terrible tragedy that happened this week in Uvalde, Texas. And I know we all talk about this every time this happens. We hear the same stories over and over. This one says this one says that. We got to do this, we got to do that. The question is, what can you, as an individual, and me as an individual do when we hear such things? We're not politicians, we're not going to help, we're not going to be able to change policy. Well, we can vote, yes, vote whenever you can, of course. But what can you really do? And what's your responsibility? So here it is. Your responsibility is your children, your family, and your closest network, to make sure that they understand how horrible, not only this terrible killing, that every decent human being understands, but where this comes from and what could be done in their own lives so that they value life, they value what's right, they value basic human decency, they value morality. How do you instill that in your children? Now, when we hear about all these tragedies that happen, and just almost every week now, and there's so much written about it, this one blames it on there's no religion in the schools, this one blames it on there's no God in the schools, this one blames it on guns in the hands of the wrong people. Now I read something new this week that is about all the medications that are pushed on children that causes mood swings and all kinds of things. Which one is it? It's probably a combination of all. It's not one thing, obviously. It's going to take a lot of changing in our system to be able to really fix what's so broken in our society. But I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about you and me. In the Machzor of Yom Kippur, we talk about at the end of the day or the end of the morning service, which is late in the afternoon, after we finish talking about everything that happened in the temple, and we say, sadly, there's no more sacrifices, no more high priest, there's no more white goat, there's no more, nothing. We don't have the altar, we don't have the temple, we don't have anything. What do we have? The Machzor says, we have one thing. We have Torah knowledge and Torah study and the observance of the mitzvahs that we could do. That's what we have today. My friends, I thought of something interesting when I was reading the Torah portion this week. And it's the first time I thought about it. There's two topics in this week's Torah portion. One is about the promise of God to the Jewish people that if they go follow God's ways, they'll be blessed greatly. And if they don't, God forbid, the opposite will happen. The second part of the Torah talks about human life and the value of human life. It's an amazing juxtaposition. And I thought about it. What's the why? Why are these two portions together? And I believe the reason is because if you're missing the first portion, you're missing the first part where you're not in touch with God, you don't walk in His ways, you don't have a God consciousness in your life, you will lose the value of life. You just will. It'll chip away little by little. Morality will become relative, and then this and that happen, and before you know it, who knows? And we should never hear about this in our families, God forbid. But I just want to tell you what you can do and what you have to do. Your children are inundated today with so much garbage and so much confusion. The garbage has been around a long time, but the confusion. There are no definitions that are sacred anymore. Everything's out the window. Everything they read, books they read, the entertainment they see, it's all, what are they hearing? What is the agenda? All to confuse our young. How do you make sure that they are not confused? My friends, there's only one way. We have nothing left. We don't have leadership. We don't have much of anything anymore. But one thing we do have, the good old Torah that was given to us 3,326 years ago, which we're going to celebrate Shavuos next week, and reestablish that commitment. That's what you have to talk to your children about. Gather them around the Shabbos table tonight. Talk to them about God. Make sure that they think about God. Not only think, but ask yourself this question, and I mean it honestly. About your son, your daughter, your children, how often do they talk about God on a given day? It's a serious question. Make sure that every single day you talk to them. They say Modani in the morning, they say Shema Yisrael. Not think about God only. It's not enough to think about it. They have to utter the words. They have to be in touch with Him on a very practical level. And when you talk about it every single day, and then once a week on Shabbos, you elaborate a little bit more on it. I know it sounds a little funny, if you never did it, how am I going to start doing this, my friends? Turn on your televisions and ask yourself, do you need to do this? The answer is you absolutely need to do this. Your children are begging for it. They need it desperately. They're confused. You want them to appreciate the value of life, to appreciate the value of ethics, the value of decency. But there's no relativism. It's got to be absolute. There's only one way. Let them say Shema Yisrael every day. Let them say Modani. Let them talk about and think about God on a daily basis, even if it's for 30 seconds, for 1 minute. All the rest is a waste of time. Trust me. This politician will say this, that politician will say that. You'll have a conversation, and then you'll move on to the next tragedy, God forbid. Do something about it. Make sure that your children understand the truth, understand the values, and get values, and get absolute Torah values. Because when you do that,